15 years, blowing the doors off the competition. Podcasting to planet Earth.
PNRNetworks.com.
This podcast is a member of the Blueberry Network. Blueberry. No E's. That's Blueberry, BLUBRRY.com. Blueberry.com.
This podcast is a proud member of the Lamb Podcasting Network. Find the network at largeassmovieblogs.com.
This is a Class 1 emergency. All civilian traffic is barred from streets and highways. Stay in your homes. Stay in your homes. Stay in your homes. Repeat, this is a Class 1 emergency. All civilian traffic is barred from streets and highways.
Do not panic. Do not panic. We've got the quirky films for your quarantine blues. Subject Cinema presents Captive Audience Theater with T.C. Kirkham and Kim Brown.
So we have another movie, yet another movie that has a lot of big stars who probably should have known better.
Yeah. But at least this time they're not facing a giant octopus.
Well, no, or a shark or anything like that. No, this time they're going to get wiped out because that meteor is 5 miles wide and it's definitely going to hit us!
Shit. 5 miles.
Welcome
Thank you.
Welcome to Subject Cinema presents Captive Audience Theater. I'm T.C. Kirkham.
I'm Kim Brown.
We should be doing this for Catastrophe Vortex, but we're not.
Acting!
Yeah.
Anyway.
1979's AIP all-star disaster movie, Meteor.
Yep.
Meteor, I actually like this film, but I like it on a very silly level. I think the special effects are top-notch. Kim doesn't agree with me. She thinks they're terrible.
Hold up. Wait.
You do too. You call the meteor the big burnt chicken McNugget of doom.
I think that's terrible. I think the disaster shots, those aren't bad.
Well, those are actually taken from, most of those are actually taken from Avalanche. Another AIP film from a couple of years earlier.
Okay.
Which we also talked about in recent days.
Yeah.
Meteor has a stellar cast. It was actually nominated for Best Sound at the Oscars, not Best Special Effects. I've always said it was Best Special Effects, but I was wrong. And this was a co-production between the AIP people and Shaw Brothers. I don't know how they got involved. There's no Japanese stars here. Usually they're involved with have a Japanese representative. Anyway, it's okay. This is weird. And the title kind of gives the entire...
Yeah, it's not very subtle about what the film is about, really.
Take it away, hon.
Directed by Ronald
Neame, who has directed some great films, including The Poseidon Adventure and First Monday in October, two of my favorite films.
1979's Meteor is, right, exactly like it says on the tin. It's a film about a meteor heading toward Earth. Now, the thing is, this film is actually about the fact that you've got this whole thing where you've got this asteroid called Orpheus.
Asteroid.
Kenny. Which is part of what they refer to as the asteroid belt. And now this is where I get confused because I don't know the difference between an asteroid, a meteor, and a comet because I don't. I just don't know. I get confused.
Meteors are usually, well, let's go through the meteor is something that's actually streaking towards something.
Okay.
An asteroid can be just floating, but both of those are made of rock usually. A comet is usually made of ice.
Okay.
And is also traveling.
I hope you're all taking notes for this because
it's fifth grade science class time.
There will be a test.
At least that's what I think. If you're a what would that be? An astrophysicist? Give us a letter and let us know the actual meanings.
If you're smarter than us, drop us a line because we're desperate. Anyway,
I don't think I like that implication.
Sorry.
Excuse me.
Fine. I'm
Miss College graduate.
I'm desperate. Yeah. Most of my stuff is in language and literature and stuff like that. They didn't really go into
liberal arts.
Flying rocks of death. So you've got this asteroid that winds up getting hit by a meteor. Now, once that happens, that breaks off part of Orpheus and sends this meteor rocketing toward Earth. Now, the thing is, part of the meteor is 5 miles wide, as we mentioned in our little bit of dialogue there at the beginning. So that hits Earth.
All apologies to the late Carl Malden and Sean Connery.
Yes. I'm not apologizing for Sean Connery's jacket in this movie, though, because
his safari jacket is ridiculous. Anyway,
it is hideous. So let's now, for those of us who didn't pay attention in science, a 5 mile long or 5 mile wide meteor hitting the Earth, and it doesn't matter where it hits it, it's going to F all of us up. This is going to literally destroy the planet.
Well, it's going to be an extinction level event, yes. Yeah. But whether it will,
it won't
destroy it on site.
That's a bad. No,
it'll take a while.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's not going to hit the planet and the planet's just going to go boom. It's going to cause catastrophic tidal waves and enormous weather changes and all kinds of other cats and dogs living together, mass hysteria.
Yeah.
No, that's Ghostbusters. I'm sorry. So anyway, now the thing is, the scientists and all that, the people who are supposed to be protecting us, that work for the government, who's supposed to be looking out for us.
They did. He didn't until the end.
They know about this. They know this is going to happen. And the thing is, the United States has a satellite up in space already that's loaded, and I do mean loaded, with missiles that are supposed to be protecting us from the commies, because this is 1970 whatever.
No. That's wrong. It was designed to protect us from threats from space.
It's supposed to protect.
And that is why Dr. Paul Bradley walked out of the government service, because the military took it over and turned it into a weapon against the Soviets.
Yeah. Dr. Bradley, who was this really smart scientist dude, he made this satellite because he's all like, sooner or later something is going to come flying out of space and smash into Earth, and if we don't prepare for that, we're all going to get croaked. So he made this space. It's not a space station; it's a satellite.
It's an orbiting weapon satellite.
Yeah, well, it didn't start out that way.
No,
it was going to be pointed out at space. Right. So if there's a meteor coming, press the button.
It carries nuclear missile payload.
Yeah, So what was supposed to happen was, satellite pointing out into space, space rocks come along, press a button, rocket goes out, boom goes rocks, everybody goes and has a beer. The problem is that the military got a hold of this thing and went, well, we have other things on Earth to worry about, like those damn commies. So they took this satellite and they repurposed it, so now all of the missiles are pointing at Russia. And Dr. Bradley was like, screw you guys, I'm going home, and quit. He just quit and went off to sail on his yacht. And he's like, when we first see him, he's on a regatta or something, some competitive America's Cup kind of deal. And they bring his friend, who still works for the government, brings him back because he's all his friend Harry Sherwood from NASA, goes to him and is all like, we need your help. This is really bad. Things are going to get really real quick. And so they have to try and convince the government to turn this thing toward the rock out in space before we all, die.
But even before that, they have to convince the Soviets to reveal the existence of their own orbiting nuclear platform.
As it turns out, those wacky Russians have their own satellite up there called Peter the Great, which is got a ton of missiles on it. And guess who that's pointing at? Yes, that's pointing at us. So the government of the United States, has to go to the Russians and be like, hey, we need your satellite to help our satellite, or we're all going to die. And the Soviets are basically like, what satellite?
We don't have that.
Yeah,
no.
they're like, what satellite? Actually, they're more like, that satellite. We don't know what you're talking about. And after a lot of talking, and I mean a lot of talking, they finally are able to... Well, it is.
It isn't that they weren't trying. It isn't that Dr. Dubov disagrees with them. He's under orders not to admit that they have this thing.
Right, I realize that. He's Dr. Alexei Dubov is a Soviet scientist who's actually like, we should listen to the Americans here, because if we don't, we're all screwed. And the Soviets are all... The Soviet politicians are being stubborn. The American politicians are being stubborn.
This
and
is
the rest
back when the Soviet Union was still called the Evil Empire.
Yeah, this is the Evil Empire time. Ask your parents. If you don't remember this, ask your parents. Don't
or your
ask
grandparents.
Or your... That hurt.
Sorry, it's the truth.
That hurt. So anyway, now all through the film, we're getting this countdown. It's day whatever till impact, because this is supposed to heighten the tension of the film. All it made me do was sit there going, oh good, we're almost to the end.
And other things that heighten the attention in the film,
yeah.
like a series of different smaller rocks flying with the remains of Orpheus,
yes.
that are crashing into Earth and causing all kinds of problems.
Yeah, you didn't think it was just the one meteor, did it? Oh no. We've got little... When I say little, I don't mean little tiny meteors that if it bonked you off the head, you'd go, ow, what was that? No, I mean they're large and they're causing a lot of damage, but it's not like the end of the world type stuff, but it's, these are still hitting Earth and killing characters that we've never seen before, but we're supposed to care about. And, well, it's true.
It is, yeah.
This film shows so much carnage and devastation, and I felt nothing. Because we're not given time to care about these characters. I'm sorry, I know that makes me sound horribly cold.
Well, the characters aren't, I mean, particularly with the ski resort that gets hit, and then avalanche triggers where they use the footage from Avalanche.
Yeah.
You don't care about these characters because they're not even in the movie. They're from another movie.
Right.
So it's like, okay.
Too. So you've got Dr. Bradley and Dr. Dubov, and Dr. Dubov's pretty assistant, Tatiana Donskaya, who is starting to make eyes at Dr. Bradley, because if the world's going to end, why not? And there's a race against time to try and figure out what needs to get done to save the Earth before this giant rock slams into it and we all have one last final rock show. It's like rock concert to end all rock concerts.
With Sean Connery as Kim's wonderful impression as Dr. Paul Bradley, Natalie Wood as Tatiana Donskaya, Carl Malden as Harry Sherwood, Brian Keith as Alexei Dubov, Martin Landau as the very stereotypical General Adlon.
Oh my gosh!
Great
More
role
about
for
Martin
him.
in a minute.
Yeah, Trevor Howard as Sir Michael Hughes, Richard Dysart as the Secretary of Defense. Joseph Campanella as General Easton, along with smaller roles for Bo Brunden, Roger Robinson, Michael Zaslow, later of some soap, I forget which soap he was on, I think Guiding Light, B.B. Besh, Sybil Danning as the girl skier at the Avalanche footage, and Henry Fonda as the President.
Yep.
Which we brought up on another show earlier.
Mm-hmm. Yep. As we mention every time we do captive audience theater, if we have to suffer, you have to suffer.
See, I can't say that because I like this movie. I don't suffer when I watch it. It's not one of the better disaster films, but it has such a great cast that you can't, I mean, it's got, Sean Connery, Brian Keith, Natalie Wood, and you do have to suffer through the, how can I put this, histrionics of a military general?
Yeah, Martin Landau's General Adlon is this uber hawk general that seems to be, his whole thing seems to be, well, now we can get those communist bastards. And I'm going, did you miss the part about the giant rock, world extinction following the dinosaur?
Yeah.
Hello! But he's so...
The only military guy in one of these movies I've seen that was worse is the general. I can't remember who played him in the Japanese-American co-production Virus from 1980, who was even more gung-ho than this guy.
Yeah. Because some people think that in the middle of a crisis is the best time to plant your political flag.
Yeah, because
you'd like to think that wouldn't happen again.
This one isn't as bad as Virus, where the guy walks into the president's office. The president's lying there dead on his desk from the virus, and he's like, "Mr. President, I'm activating blah 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 blah." And I'm like, "Oh, of course you are."
Yeah. I mean, what kind of an a-hole would take a worldwide tragedy to further their own politic... Oh.
Not to mention that there is no politic because everybody's dead in that movie.
Yeah.
What is another movie entirely? Anyway. Back to Meteor.
Yeah.
Or, as Kim calls it, the burnt chicken McNugget
Flying
of doom.
burnt chicken McNugget of doom. I'm sorry. Now, the thing about this film... See, one of the things that I don't like about this film is one of the things that you do. In the fact that when you have now you are more of a natural disaster movie junkie than me, as in you love them and I can't stand them. Part of the reason I think that
you like San Andreas.
I like The Rock in San Andreas. Hi, Rock.
Yeah, but you became fans of the entire people and you love to see Ewan Grifo get smushed.
Yeah. Sorry, Ewan. Yeah. I like you, but your character was a dick, and that was total schadenfreude.
Anyway.
This film has... See, that's another thing. This film has really very little schadenfreude. And
yeah, it does.
When you have a disaster movie, you really need some schadenfreude moments. You do.
It doesn't have a lot of them,
no. I mean, even Airport had that one... That was Airport, right? That wasn't one of the later ones?
Which one?
The moment where the guy's losing his crap.
And the priest, that's Airport, the original from 1970.
That is one of the best schadenfreude moments ever. If you don't know what schadenfreude means, go look it up. But you don't really have that in this film.
No, you don't.
That's another...
you do see a couple of people that should have died get killed in one of the Meteor splinter strikes. But other than that, you don't really see much.
No. You don't have that vicarious moment where you're like, well, he was a dick, she was a bitch, they're dead, yay.
Yeah.
You don't
have that in this movie.
You don't have that. That's also schadenfreude in a nutshell. But, see, that's the other thing that I was going to say. When it comes to disaster films, you don't have that moment that you have in other films like kaiju films, like slasher movies, things like that, where your antagonist is something you can look in the eye. You know?
Well, you can look at the meteor. They keep showing it flying toward Earth.
But a meteor, tidal wave...
There's nothing to communicate with it.
Yeah, a meteor, a tidal wave, a volcano, something like that. There's no intelligence behind it. Even a shark has an intelligence behind it.
Yeah, I agree.
Its intelligence is beyond just eating and making baby sharks, Richard Dreyfuss. But it's a thinking animal. You know, it does act on instinct.
Yeah.
A meteor.
So you're saying is that there's no. It doesn't have the same moments because it's something that you can't relate to.
You can't relate to it. You can't reason with it.
That makes sense.
You can't bargain with it. You can't communicate with it. You can only hope to outrun it. Mm-hmm. Now, I know for some people like you, that ramps up the tension of it. It just
not necessarily.
Or it adds.
I enjoy disaster movies just because I grew up in the era of them. I have a show, Catastrophe Vortex, all about them.
Yeah.
But it's like I enjoy the different interactions and stuff.
Right.
These movies, disaster movies, starting with Airport and actually going back as far as High and the Mighty, are Love Boat shows with disasters. They're all-star casts with, although even I will admit, the cast diminished from movie to movie.
It was a sliding scale of
by the time we got from Airport in 1970 with Burt Lancaster and Gene Seberg and George Kennedy and Dean Martin, and then by the time we got to Airport, the Concorde, 1979, we had Jimmy Walker and Charo. And George Kennedy was still around. That was about it.
Yeah.
It's like,
this film has a lot of. I mean, this film has a lot of established
that's
actors.
What I mean. So does all of these kind of movies. Earthquake did, and all of the 70s ones, Towering Inferno, had at least name cast members, even if some of them complained about the movie later. like Jack Lemmon, who hated Airport 77. So,
yeah. My big issue with this film is, I guess my biggest issue with Meteor is the fact that the film focuses so much on the military people, the scientists, and all that. And that's important. I just would have wanted to see more of what a regular person is doing, because I'm going to be able to relate more to a regular person as opposed to a military person or a scientist.
So you would have liked Deep
whatever.
Impact better than this, then?
Probably.
There's a lot of regular people in that, as opposed to scientists. Like Tia Leone's a television reporter. Elijah Wood is a high school student who discovered what was coming.
I mean, that's just my take on it. I mean, you may not
would have liked
agree.
Deep Impact better
You may
than
not
Meteor.
agree with me, but that's how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, this
That's
does
fine,
have a really fun
I understand
cast.
where you're coming from, definitely.
It's just that around this time, there were so many films that were really trying to... I guess my other big problem with this film is, and this is something that a lot of people... This is going to hurt. A lot of younger people are going to have a problem with. Maybe not. That they really shoehorn the political stuff in this film. I mean, I really feel like they do.
They do, especially this is a very much a Cold War movie.
Yeah.
If you've not seen it, there's the us against them and the Soviets. We're just a couple years away from Ronald Reagan calling them the evil empire.
Right.
There's a very big Cold War aspect to this film.
Right.
For kids who haven't grown up or adults, who haven't grown up with that, because I mean, you got to remember, kids born after 1990 were not born mostly in the Cold War.
Right.
Cold War.
Right.
So we're talking 40-year-olds. That's terrifying.
Yeah.
No, 30-year-olds. Sorry. Now I'm doing R. Kelly math. Anyway,
It's just that for younger people watching this, I think they might have a bit of, and I might be wrong, that they might have a bit of a disconnect where you would think that people would go, put the effing politics aside, we're all gonna die.
You don't do that now.
That's the depressing thing, that we don't. That we don't learn from that,
Meteor is available from Amazon Prime for $3.99. You might be able to find it in other places. And I have reviewed it in more detail on Catastrophe Vortex. If you'd like to come over and check it out at catastrophevortex.com. What is the category for this one?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. This category for this film is jumping on the bandwagon.
Why do you get jumping on the bandwagon for this?
Because
this was one of the last of the big budget disaster movies.
That's my point. Because we'd exhausted every other disaster. By the time this film came out,
almost every other one,
done everything else
except Volcanoes, and Irwin Allen would take care of that the following year with a really terrible movie called When Time Ran Out.
Yeah, that's my point. They'd done everything else. They'd done tidal waves. They'd done fires. They'd done earthquakes. They'd done this, that, and the other thing. Short of doing a disaster movie about aggressive killer smog, I don't know what else they could have been able to yank. That horse was almost completely and utterly dead. They'd beaten it to the point where it was basically just, driven into the dirt, and this was one of the final films that actually had something in it that would actually qualify as an all-star cast.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not trying to be nasty to anybody
that
was in When Time Ran Out.
Every single major disaster movie from the 1970s Airport through 1980 or 81's When Time Ran Out had what they called an all-star cast. Even when you're just talking about, some of them are I was being facetious about Airport 79, the Concorde Airport 79. George Kennedy is there, Alain Delon is there, Susan Blakely, Robert Wagner. It had big stars. But most of them were television.
Sucked.
Most of them were television, not
and it
movies.
Sucked.
So, yeah, well...
It was a terrible movie.
Yeah, it is, but it's hilarious.
Watch it.
It's hilarious.
It was awful.
It's hilarious. It's that bad.
I mean, you've got a problem with your movie when it gets released and people...
The studio realizes, oh crap, we better make this a campy campaign.
Yeah, they re-released it as a comedy.
Yeah.
Because people thought it was supposed to be a comedy because it was such a colossal F-up.
And yet they had actually
movie.
planned Airport 82? and it never got off the ground.
Well, because Airplane
Anyway,
came along and they went, oh,
yeah,
that's
exactly what happened.
That's killed that.
We'll have more of these bad movies in the near future on Captive Audience Theater. Until then, you can keep in touch with me on Twitter at eCinema1 and eCinema Boston, usually on eCinema1. Kim is at Platinum Rose L. You can write to us with ideas you have. Let us know what you're thinking about this series of shows, which will be going on through the month of June and possibly longer.
Yep.
At Subject Cinema at PNRNetworks.com. Don't forget to check out our other shows, including Platinum Rose Roleplay. Search for that over on YouTube. Also, her wrestling show, Ring Around the Rosie, and her supernatural show, Platinum Rose's Garden, and also K-Babble with Eric and Valerie Lyon, and my other show, Catastrophe Vortex, we've talked about already.
Yep.
So on that note, we're out of here. For Captive Audience Theater, I'm T.C. Kirkham.
I'm Kim Brown.
May your popcorn always be buttered.
And may your roses always be in bloom.
Boom!
Oh, that was nice.
You've been listening to Subject Cinema Presents Captive Audience Theater with Kim Brown and T.C. Kirkham. Produced by PNRNetworks, Boston, Massachusetts.
years, blowing the doors off the competition, podcasting to planet Earth.
PNRNetworks.com